Determine the components along the coordinate axis of the position vectors for the following point. Okay, let us begin. First, we'll consider an origin O. So let O be the origin. This is going to be the origin of some coordinate system with respect to which we are measuring point P, Q, R, and S. Then, if O is the origin, then OP, if we join point O and P with the help of a directed line segment going from point O towards P, then OP vector is simply going to be the position vector of the point P. This is going to be the position vector of the point P. Now, position vector of the point P, since we have the coordinates of point P, then we can simply express it as 5 times the unit vector I cap plus 4 times the unit vector j cap, because 5 corresponds to the x coordinate of point P. That's why we're multiplying with I cap, indicating that it's 5 units along the x-axis, and 4 being the y coordinate of point P, we're multiplying with the j cap, indicating that this OP vector is 4 units along the y-axis. Now our goal is to find out the components. So we will find out the components of OP along x-axis. We are only considering the magnitude. So if we consider the magnitude, this is going to be equals to 5. But if we consider the vector OP along the x-axis, so that's going to be 5 I cap. Then we have the vector OP along the y-axis. If we only want the components, so that's going to be 4. And the vector OP along y-axis, that's going to be equals to 4j cap. Okay, now we can define. So part 1 is done. That this is the point P that we are discussing. Number 1, let's call it number 1. Now coming to number 2. Now let OQ vector be the position vector of the point Q, of the position vector of the point Q. Then this implies that OQ vector is going to be negative 4 I cap plus 3j cap. What is the component of vector OQ along the x-axis? Now we're considering the component. That means we're talking about the magnitude. So that's going to be positive 4. We have to be extremely careful because magnitude is always positive quantity. And what is the vector OQ along x-axis? Now we have the vector OQ along x-axis. Here we also have to consider the negative sign as well. We'll take negative 4 I cap. Fine. Then what is the component of the vector OQ along y-axis? That means what is the magnitude? That's going to be equals to 3 units. But simply if we consider the component along y direction, so that's going to be 3j cap. Now we can also define for 3 as well as 4. So here we're going to consider for point number 3, let OR vector be the position vector of the point R, which means that OR vector, that's going to be equals to 5 times I cap minus 7 times j cap. Now component of OR along the x-axis, so that's going to be 5 units. Component of OR along the y-axis, that's going to be positive 7 units. Now component of OR vector along x-axis, that's going to be 5 I cap. Component of OR vector along the y-axis, that's going to be equals to negative 7 j cap. Then we're going to consider OS to be the position vector of the point S, such that OS vector is given by negative 4 I cap minus negative 5 j cap. In other words, components of OS along the x-axis, it's going to be positive 4. Components of OS vector along x-axis is going to be negative 4 I cap. Components of OS vector, OS along with the y-axis, is going to be positive 5 magnitude y, and components of OS along the y-axis of that vector OS along y-axis is going to be negative 5 j cap.